Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today I have this beautiful 15-inch ThinkPad, and this one is not as common as you might think it to be. This is the Lenovo ThinkPad E595. Now, for the eagle-eyed among you, you will note that there are some AMD and Ryzen stickers here on the bottom, and that is because the 595 is an AMD-powered ThinkPad. One of the quick ways to identify some of these earlier models is the Intel version would be the E590, and then they just add a 5 at the end to denote that it's the AMD version. Now, the 595s are pretty rare in the sense that when I went on eBay, I found a lot of parts, but practically no complete machines. They do retail, used market for anywhere from 350 to 400 Canadian dollars. And there's an awful lot to like, especially for a machine that is Windows 11 capable. So these were released, the E590 and E595, in April of 2019, and they featured a polycarbonate bottom, which is a bit tricky to remove. It's a very tight fit, and then an aluminum or aluminum lid. The 15-inch screen size came in two varieties, a 1366 by 768 TN 220 nit panel, which only has a 401 contrast ratio and an only 90-degree viewing angle. In my opinion, best avoided. The one that you want is the 1920 by 1080 IPS, 250 net, 700:1 contrast ratio, and 170-degree viewing angle. Much nicer piece of kit. Regardless, they all come with a web camera and microphone array at the top. And of course, because you have a 15-inch laptop, you do have that full-sized, gorgeous keyboard with included numpad. And you'll notice because there is no pictogram here denoting a backlight, this keyboard is not backlit. Because this is an AMD machine, we do have Ryzen CPUs, a 3, a 5, and a 7. And I'll list those up on the screen, and depending on which one you picked, it was a Vega 3, Vega 8, or RX Vega 10 integrated GPU. All of these systems have two RAM slots, DDR4 2400 MHz, and can support up to 32 gigs of RAM. On the inside of this, we have one 2.5-inch bay and one M.2 2280 or 2242 will also fit in there. So you have two drives, two RAM slots, which is a fair bit of upgradability. All of this is being driven by a sizable 45 watt-hour battery. So besides what we see on the inside here, let's take a quick tour of the ports. On the right-hand side, we have our charging USB Type-C port, HDMI 1.4b, and a USB-A 3.1 Gen 1 port. Well, two of them, in fact. And then we have a headphone microphone combo jack. Along the front and the back, we don't have anything, but on the right-hand side, we have our Kensington lock slot, our Ethernet slot, another USB port, and then a micro SD card slot. So overall, for basic levels of connectivity, no real shortages happening here. All the basic ports that you would need are present. So if we flip this over, we're going to do a very quick disassembly because these plastic covers are quite the pain. So here we go. Alright, now that we have the plastic cover off, and these plastic covers tend to be a pretty tight fit, I went in through the back here and then actually went around. Getting into the back this way was a bit tricky. We can see access to all of the internals, and there's actually a fair bit to upgrade, and that's one of the things about the E series that not a lot of people realize, is if you want two RAM slots, lots of drives, all that goodies, you are going to find that less and less on the T and the X1 series, especially the modern ones, but when it comes to the E series, they tend to be pretty upgrade friendly. So, diving right in, this one is equipped with a 2.5-inch bay, and you can see just over here, this is probably where an alternate M.2 bay would go if it were equipped, and I suspect the ribbon cable would run along here and up into here if that was indeed the case. However, we are looking at a 2.5-inch bay. We also have an M.2 2280 drive being held in with this bracket. So this is actually pretty well equipped in terms of storage space. RAM is 2 slots, and like I mentioned earlier, it is 32 gigs, very easy to take up and remove. And this is an 8 gigabyte stick, so we're a long way away from maxing out that 32. few other things to note is that we do have a separate independent board here to handle micro SD, USB, and gigabit Ethernet. And that's built in and supported by the hinge as well as the main chassis. We also have a independent and removable Wi-Fi card, and this is a 9260, so going to get pretty good speeds out of that. And then of course we have our large battery located here. We see a few other wires that are disappearing underneath. For example, this fellow here, I suspect is our CMOS battery disappearing underneath of our main battery. So if we needed to disassemble some of the other components, we would want to remove the battery to do so. And we're just going to lift that off to the side. There's our CMOS battery. And then here is the ribbon to our trackpad and the screws that are holding in the trackpad. So pretty darn accessible and easy to service. The only other thing I'll point out is the keyboard removal. And looking in the hardware maintenance manual, which I'll leave in the description down below, this screw right here, which is just inside of this cutout for this supplementary board, is what you need to remove. And then you need to use a special tool, they say, to essentially go underneath the track point buttons and release the keyboard, moving it up and undoing some screws. I'm going to briefly see how necessary that specific tool is, and yeah, we'll see. So we need to undo this silver screw here, which, not going to lie, doesn't look like it does very much at all, but manual says to remove, so I shall remove. I'm going to get rid of my stand. So what we're doing is we're popping off the track point buttons. And that reveals an additional 2 screws that are very, very tiny. And it looks like the tool inserts here and here. Yeah, no, a tool would definitely make that easier. No question. And then your ribbon cables are located right here along the back side. Yikes. It's one of those things that the tool would most definitely help. Won't lie to you. It can be done without the tool. It's still not as bad as having to do this, do a keyboard replacement on like an X240. That still sucks more. All right, let's put everything back together and we'll do some boot times. All right, with everything back together, let's go ahead and open this up and turn it on, see what we get for boot times. All right, pretty respectable, no real concerns there. Let's see if we can up the brightness on our screen a bit. And that's as high as it goes, so I wonder what panel we have inside here. All right, thank goodness this is the 1920 by 1080 panel. It's not going to be like fantastically bright at 250 nits max, but again, this is a serviceable machine, not a Cadillac. And the keyboard feels great, as you would expect the ThinkPad keyboard to feel. Lots of travel, beautiful numpad, and this one's rocking the Ryzen 5 3500U with the Radeon Vega graphics. 8 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, it's a really nice browse the internet, use at home, need to enter data into an Excel spreadsheet kind of machine. And they're not super common, at least not around here. And if you don't know what they are, then I would imagine that you might give it a pass by. But there's nothing wrong with this machine. Again, you're running a modern operating system. It's going to be able to do all your basic computing tasks, lots of storage. So if you do happen to find a E590 or E595, they are good value for money. If you do have any questions, make sure you're putting them in the comments section down below. And if you want to make sure that you're notified the next time I do a video like this, all the YouTube stuff is over in this corner here. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.